Have you ever come across a place that shouldn't exist? A town that appears on no maps, where the roads seem to lead nowhere, and those who enter are never quite the same? Tonight, we journey into the depths of a mystery so unsettling that even seasoned investigators refuse to go near it. A town hidden in the shadows of the Appalachian Mountains, one that locals whisper about but dare not speak its name aloud. This is the story of Raven Shade, the town that should not exist. It started with a missing hiker. Daniel Carter, a seasoned outdoorsman, set out for a solo trip into the Blue Ridge Mountains, a stretch of wilderness both breathtaking and unforgiving. He had done this a dozen times before, packing light, mapping his route, and keeping in touch with friends through his GPS tracker. But this time, something went wrong. 3 days after his scheduled return, there was no sign of him. Authorities launched a search, retracing his intended path, but the deeper they went, the more strange things became. Tracks appeared and disappeared without explanation. Equipment malfunctioned. The rescue dogs, trained to follow even the faintest scent, refused to go beyond a certain point, as if an invisible wall was keeping them back. Then, a week after he vanished, Daniel returned. Only, he wasn't the same. They found him wandering a back road, barefoot, clothes tattered, skin pale as a corpse. His eyes, once a warm brown, were now a milky white. He was muttering something, over and over, under his breath. When the paramedics approached, they realized he was repeating a name. Raven Shade. He had no memory of what happened, no recollection of how he survived a full week in the mountains with no supplies, no fire, no food. All he could recall was waking up in a town he had never seen before. A town frozen in time, with buildings decayed yet untouched by nature, streetlights flickering despite no visible power lines. And the people? He said they weren't quite right. After his return, Daniel wasn't the same man. He suffered from night terrors so violent that he would wake up covered in scratches, as if something had been clawing at him in his sleep. He refused to be in the dark, insisting that when the lights went out, he could hear whispers, voices calling his name. His friends tried to help. One of them, an investigative journalist named Claire Henshaw, became obsessed with Raven Shade. If this town existed, why wasn't it on any maps? Why had no one ever spoken about it? Why did no records of its existence remain? Claire traced old county archives, pored over missing person reports, and dug through decades-old newspaper clippings. What she found chilled her to the bone. Raven Shade had existed once, long ago. But it had been wiped off the map, burned to the ground in 1932. The town's 200 residents had vanished without a trace, leaving behind homes filled with untouched meals, chairs pulled up to tables, and half-written letters that trailed off mid-sentence. And now, it was back. Determined to uncover the truth, Claire and a small team of urban explorers set out to find Raven Shade. Using Daniel's fragmented memories, she traced the last coordinates from his GPS before it mysteriously shut off. The deeper they went, the more reality seemed to bend. They encountered impossible things, signs of life where there should be none. A single street lamp glowing in the middle of an empty forest. The faint sound of a music box playing an eerie tune. Yet no source in sight. Shadows that moved, even when no one was casting them. Then, they found it. Beyond an overgrown path, hidden by the forest canopy, Raven Shade stood exactly as Daniel described. A town untouched by time, yet decayed by something unnatural. Storefronts with displays frozen in a bygone era. Cars rusted yet intact, their license plates showing a date that didn't exist. And the people? They watched from windows, silhouettes standing motionless behind curtains, faces barely visible, yet distinctly wrong. Their eyes seemed too dark, their smiles too wide. One of Claire's team members, a skeptic named Mark, called out, "Hey, do you live here?" Silence. Then, a sound, a clicking noise, like teeth chattering, but too fast. The nearest figure stepped forward, its movements unnatural, as if it had forgotten how to walk. And then, in a voice that sounded layered, as though many voices were speaking at once, it answered, "We never left." That was the last footage recovered from Claire's camera. Their abandoned vehicle was found a week later, its doors wide open, the engine still running. But of Claire and her team? No trace, no footprints, no signs of struggle. Only their camera remained, buried in the dirt as if someone, or something, had left it behind as a warning. And Daniel? After hearing about Claire's disappearance, he grew more erratic. One night, he scrawled a message all over his walls, hundreds of times, before vanishing without a trace. His message? If you see Raven Shade, don't go in, they're waiting. So, what do you think? Could there be towns that exist outside of time? Places that the world has forgotten, or chosen to ignore? And if Raven Shade shouldn't exist, then who, or what, is living there now? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And whatever you do, if you ever find a road leading to a town that isn't on the map, turn around.